Hey all, new day, new van projects. Also, I have a funeral flag. I went to my uncle's funeral, they put it on the van, and then we left and I got home and discovered I still had a flag on the van because the people at the funeral parlor took them off everything else. So screw it, I have a funeral flag. It's gonna go, let's stick it up somewhere in the garage. If you look carefully, you'll probably see it in the background among all my other odds and ends. But anyway, van. I have a limited amount of time because tonight's a date night. So I got a couple things I want to do. I don't know how much I'm going to get to it, but I'm going to just start blasting into it. One, that mixing valve I put into the cooling system, well, it's pissing itself. Every time the engine cools off, it'll spit coolant down, and I'm like 99% sure it's coming out of that valve. Been doing more research online, and half the people say you need it for the heat, and half the people say, oh, you only need it for the rear heat, and I can't find any proof one way or the other. The big thing is I was trying to find someone who had a like diagram of the heating box so I could see if there was a mixer built into the heating box under the dash, but I can't. So what I'm going to do, at least temporarily, is pull that valve out, hook them directly up, because if that fixes it, awesome. And if that just turns out to have me have full blast heat all the time, I can live with that for, you know, like the few days it's going to take for the proper good quality AC Delco one to show up. Other thing, need an oil change, and it's been dripping more than usual, so I'm going to keep an eye out for new oil leak under there. I suspect it's either the drain plug or the filter is just not tight, but we'll find out with that. The other thing that I'm probably not going to get to today, but I'm probably going to try and start today, is I still need to flush the brake fluid on this, and yeah, I've been putting it off. It's needed that since I bought it. But anyway, I'm going to flush the brake fluid on this, but I decided I'm going to replace the 3 rubber brake lines while I'm doing that, because good odds that they're all 26 years old. So since I need to run new fluid through everything anyway, might as well put some new lines on it, not have to worry about bursting a line. But I'm not sure if I'm going to get to that one. But it's also, the sun is going down, as you can tell, so it's going to start getting really cold really fast, because we had 70-degree weather last week, and this week we have 40-degree weather because New England decided to start having winter. So let's get to it. So I'm having some trouble. I don't know if I can get the camera in there to show it. But yeah, see that lower hose down there? This, you see it. Yeah, that one down there. Basically, all the other hoses loosened up. That one will not loosen. It just started spinning inside the clamp, but it also won't release the clamping force. So what I've been doing is trying to get a screwdriver in there so I can basically break the clamp apart so that I can release the tension on it so I can get it off, so I can get that piece of hose off. It's a royal pain in the ass, but there's no real other way to get in there. I can't even like cut the hose because there's just not room to get a cutting tool in there. So I just have to keep like prying away at it as best I can. Very frustrating. Alright, got the damn thing off. As you can see, I had to like destroy the clamping, pull the worm gear out so that it would release it so that I could get it off. So this is what appears to be leaking. I'm not actually 100% sure. There's so many connections here that it could be any one of these is just a little loose. But I've tried to tighten the ones I can, and it didn't help. So I'm taking this out for right now. The new problem is that this is the lower hose. The one that comes from the back of the engine that's supposed to go in here was only made long enough to connect here. It wasn't made long enough to loop back around and connect here. So I'm going to need to get a longer hose for that. The one for up here should fit, but I need to make a parts store run to get that one. Alright, we're back. I didn't film because, as you can tell, it's getting very dark very fast. There, that's a little bit better. But I went and got some more hose. So that's now been reinstalled just with the hose without the valve. The doghouse is still off because I want to make sure the other end's not leaking before I put it back on. This is the vacuum line. There. This is the vacuum line that used to go to that valve, so I've just stuck a screw in it for now. Once I confirm that I don't need that valve, what I'm going to do is cut this and seal it permanently. But right now I want the option to go back if I need to. Fill the radiator. It's a little overfilled right now because the system is still heating, but I'm waiting basically for the thermostat to open so it can suck coolant into the rest of the system. And so I can top that up. But yeah, I think we're going to be good here. We'll find out the next time I drive it whether or not I have control over my heat. But at the very least, hopefully this will take care of the leak. I originally thought this was the radiator because the leak is straight down from here, so I assumed that the side tank had failed somewhere. But then I looked into it further after ordering a radiator, of course, because that's the way I operate. And it looked more like it was coming out of one of the connections on that valve or the valve itself. So decided to pull that out, because if it's the valve itself, it needs to be replaced. If it's not the valve, and I don't need the valve, obviously save myself the trouble. So I think I'm going to let this idle for a little bit while I clean up and check the fluid levels. Alright, new day, except I can't continue on my list because the van's decided to wet itself in a new way. So we came out to a puddle in a new location under the van. And I've already tracked it down to, I don't know if you'll be able to see this at all, but in there on the water pump, you can see that clamp. That is where it's leaking. It's either just that clamp is loose enough to be dribbling, or that fitting that I had to screw into the water pump has decided to start leaking, but it is actively dripping. So what I'm going to do is get in there, blast it all with compressed air to get the accumulated water out, tighten it, blast it again, and then see if I can see where the drip is coming from. I'm hoping I can just tighten that clamp, but who knows at this point. So while I've got my arm jammed up in the van like a veterinarian servicing a cow, two other things. That valve that I wasn't sure whether I needed or not, don't need it. Completely unnecessary. That is for the rear heat and rear heat only. With it removed from the system, the front heat works just fine. So that's nice and good. That made things easier. So that theoretically is all taken care of because now that's completely out of the system, so it can't be a source of leaks. And then also, unfortunately, doing this all by feel because I can't see anything anyway. Unfortunately, the oil filler cap has gone walkabouts. I don't know if I knocked it off while I was doing that last round of work, taking it because I took the airbox in and out, or whether it fell off another time. It's like a press fit, which is really weird. So in the previous shot, you may have seen a rag stuffed in it. That's my temporary solution until I order another one. But good thing is I don't need a radiator because it was just that valve. Can't tell if I've gotten this taken care of. The fitting didn't really want to move. I think I may have moved it a very, very tiny amount. The clamp seemed tight, but then I went and loosened it and moved it a little bit and retightened it, and it's at least slowed the drip. It's no longer pouring out the way it was, because it was actively dripping. So I'm now in there just trying to see if I can get another, quarter turn out of it or whatever. But I think I'm at my max on that. But hopefully that's taking care of that, or at least slowed it down some again. So I'm going to try put a little more coolant in the system, try driving it, see if that takes care of that. But it's kind of messed up my plans to do other work on the van today because I just ended up having to deal with this. So this is getting dragged out to probably yet another day. Alright, so I lied a little. Apparently I'm not done today. I decided to keep working. I just did an oil change on the van, which was a bit overdue. Last one I did was in the spring. Oh, thank you. And yep, nice and good. So that's taken care of. That's another thing off the list. I'm not going to work on the brakes today because that involves really a mess and also ripping the van apart, because if I'm taking off brake hoses I can potentially break brake lines, and that just turns it into a bigger project. So I want to do that when I have no expectation of needing the van to go anywhere the next day, or later that day. What I think I am going to do is suck the old fluid out of the master cylinder, replace that with new fluid, with the intent of sucking that back out and replacing it again, but that'll give it a chance to get the fluid out of the inside of the master cylinder just through use. And then I think I have a headlight switch that came in that box, and I think I'm going to put that in because the dash lights don't work properly. So I, as you saw, sucked it out. The very end, I actually managed to somehow suck brake fluid through and into the pump itself, so I may have ruined that pump, but it was good enough to get most of it off. And then I wiped this out with a clean paper towel, added new fluid, which is now clear instead of black. But I don't know if this will show up on camera, but there's like little wisps in the brake fluid there, which is just crud that it picked up as it was pouring in. So what I'm going to do is run this for a few days with this brake fluid in it, so that this can get sucked into the master and pulled back out again, and hopefully can get some of that contamination and grossness out of the master itself all the way through its stroke and operation. And then I'm going to come back probably this weekend, suck all this fluid back out again, put fresh fluid in again, then replace the brake lines and bleed everything through and just, you know, cycle that fresh fluid through the whole system. But this way I can kind of almost rinse the master out ahead of time in hopes that that'll really do a good job of getting all this old cruddy brake fluid and residue out of here. I'm pretty sure this is 26-year-old brake fluid. I don't think this brake system has ever been apart and ever been flushed. The only problem with that is, of course, I may end up blowing up the master or blowing up the ABS pump by cycling all the crud out. The crud may be what's holding it together at this point, but we'll take that risk. So yeah, just pop these back on, and then this will be done for now. Alright, so the headlight switch is here. I need to change that out. Basically, there's a couple screws holding this little trim panel on. This needs to come out, the actual lever, and there's a button on, you know, let me get the switch. Alright, there's a button on the switch right here that when you push it up, it's supposed to release that. They never work well, they're always a pain in the butt. So half my time changing that is going to be fighting with getting this out so that I can get the rest of it out. But once I get this out, I can take the trim piece completely off. There's a screwed in piece right here that actually retains it. And then I can drop it down within the dash, unplug it, plug it back in, installation, reverse removal. The only dilemma is how many pins. This is a 8-pin. There's also a 7-pin. I don't know what the difference between them are, but it was very distinct that I needed to know which one I had. And I did my best to like reach up under there and count the wires going to it, but I'm not sure I actually bought the right one. So we're going to hope like heck I did. And all right, yeah, let's get this going. All right, so I pulled the switch, and it turns out that I had a 7-pin switch, and this is an 8-pin that I bought because I must have miscounted the wires. Though, oh, that's why, because there's 2 that goes into the same thing. From what I've read online, what I can find is that this pin, this is the only one that's not used on this connector. This pin appears to be a holdover from earlier vehicles where the running lights in the front would turn off when the headlights turned on. Probably from cars with generators that needed to, you know, save every little amp they could. And that now they stay on so that that pin is just irrelevant. So everything I can find online says plug this in and it'll work fine. So I'm going to try that, and we're going to go forward from there. See if it does, see if it doesn't. But why I needed this, you can see that arc spring there, that's the rheostat that controls the dimness of the dash lights. Basically, as you turn it, there's a sweeper. It's over there. You can just kind of see it. There's a sweeper down here that sweeps across that, and the further it is across it, the brighter your dash lights are. My Switch doesn't have any of that left anymore. The spring is broken, and so it's just, you basically have to jiggle it until you get some kind of connection between the broken pieces. So this Switch is junk regardless. So I'm going to put that one in. I'm going to hope that one works. If it does, done. If it doesn't, we'll go forward from there. Well, that switch works just fine. You don't need the 7-pin. You can use the 8-pin just as well. So headlights still work, and now the dash lights come back on. They're still terrible. I think I've actually even got a bulb burned out, but every single person on the van forum says the dash lights are terrible. People who put LEDs in say, by and large, it doesn't matter. They're not going to get much better. So I have seen some people put an LED strip on the inside of the dash assembly, like at the top facing down, and wire that into the dash lights. So I may try that at some point, but low priority. I just needed any dash lights. So that takes care of that. I think that does me for today's work, because it's actually Thanksgiving today, well, whenever this video comes out. So in about 2 hours, we're heading over to my best friend's place, and she's serving a bunch of us Thanksgiving dinner. So I'm really looking forward to that. Really glad that I figured out that coolant leak so that I can take this there. So I think the last thing I'm going to do is clean my windows inside and out, and treat the outside with Rain-X and the inside with anti-fog to be ready for the winter season. But that's it for now. Thank you all very much for watching. I'll talk to you later. Bye.